Beneath the Oak Tree, the funeral that exposed a kingdom of fear. Part 1. The Flag and the Barrel. The air was still that morning, the kind of stillness that feels borrowed, like the world had paused out of respect. My son Elijah stood in the garden, dressed in his late brother's old scout jacket. It hung loose on his frame, sleeves too long, heart too full. In his hands, he held a small bouquet of wildflowers and a folded flag. He knelt beside the simple wooden box beneath the towering oak tree, Matthew's favorite as a boy, and whispered something I couldn't hear. The chaplain's honor song played softly in the background, the folded triangle of stars and stripes resting gently near the fresh soil. I stood a few feet away, my hand trembling but steady enough to hold back tears. This was not just a burial. This was a promise fulfilled. Then came the voice. Get on the ground. Hands where I can see them. I spun around. A fleet of patrol cars screeched to a halt at the edge of our driveway. Doors flung open. 6 officers swarmed in like it was a cartel raid, weapons drawn, boots pounding across the lawn. Elijah froze, his hands hovering in the air, bouquet still clutched between shaking fingers. I stepped forward slowly. Every instinct in me screamed. But in that moment, I wasn't the United States Attorney General. I was just a mother. I raised my badge. My name is Mary Ann Rivera, I said, my voice cold and calm. United States Attorney General. Stand down. The lead officer stopped mid-stride. His face went pale like someone had pulled the floor from under him. One of the younger deputies glanced toward Karen's house. Yes, that Karen, where she stood on her driveway, phone in hand, smirking like she'd just caught someone double parking. She's lying. Karen barked. That badge is fake. Anyone can order one online. And that boy threatened me with a stick. The stick she was referring to as a folded flagpole. What followed was a clumsy cocktail of apologies, nervous shuffling, and bureaucratic hesitation. One of the officers stepped away to whisper with his partner, likely pulling up my DOJ credentials. 30 seconds later, the tone of the entire standoff changed. Weapons were holstered. The aggression deflated. Elijah dropped the flowers and sat on the grass, still shaking. Karen, sensing the shift, tried to backpedal. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe, she chirped. There are rules, you know. Yes, Karen, there are rules, and I'm the one who enforces them. Part 2. Oak Tree and Empire. 2 weeks before the burial, I sat at the old kitchen table, staring at the folded letter that came in the final military package. Matthew's final request was simple. If anything happens to me, bury me under the oak tree. The one where Elijah and I used to race up the branches. We had the right. Our 5-acre property had been in our family since before there were sidewalks and solar lights. Decades ago, it was legally designated as a private burial site under old Southern land use laws, a fact well documented and conveniently ignored by Karen Green, HOA president of Oak Ridge Estates. Karen never liked us. We didn't plant the right flowers. We didn't hang the seasonal wreaths at the appropriate 27-degree angle. And most importantly, we didn't attend her HOA meetings, where she treated neighborhood compliance like a military drill. That morning, when Elijah knelt by Matthew's grave, we were quiet, reverent. A chaplain spoke softly. There are no guests beyond family, no grand gestures, only love and loss. But to Karen, grief wasn't aesthetic. And worst of all, it was happening without her permission. 15 minutes later, a swarm of squad cars rolled up like we were harboring fugitives. What Karen didn't know, what she should have known before calling 911, was that her false report would become the match that lit a federal fire she couldn't control. After the officers backed off and Karen had huffed back in her house, I got Elijah inside and safe. Then I walked the perimeter of our property. That's when I noticed them. 2 new surveillance cameras pointed directly at Matthew's resting place. They hadn't been there yesterday. They were hidden inside decorative birdhouses, but I knew the brand. And more importantly, I knew the law. Karen had crossed a line. That night, I didn't sleep. Grief pressed on my chest like stone. But injustice? That lit a fire. Part 3. The math teacher from DOJ. The next morning, I made a call to someone I hadn't spoken to in a year. Roy Hensley, a senior DOJ investigator who looked more like a middle school algebra teacher than a man capable of dismantling financial empires. But behind his thick glasses and coffee-stained tie was a mind like a scalpel, precise, relentless, and quietly dangerous. "I need you to look into something," I said. Start with their finances. "That's all you're giving me?" Roy asked. For now. He didn't ask questions. He never did. He just said, "Give me 72 hours." While Roy disappeared into his world of spreadsheets and subpoenas, Karen escalated. Flyers began appearing in mailboxes warning neighbors that community safety was under attack. She hosted an emergency HOA meeting, complete with a branded podium, pastel PowerPoint slides, and a microphone clipped to her lapel like she was running for mayor. When Elijah and I walked into the meeting hall, silence fell. Karen's smile faltered. She tried to continue her presentation, accusing us of unauthorized ceremonies, noise disturbances, and emotional disruption to neighborhood tranquility. I raised my hand. Our property is exempt from HOA jurisdiction. County files confirm this, as do federal land use regulations. Karen scoffed. Anyone can file something. Doesn't make it legal. Elijah, calm and composed, pulled out a folder and began reading. The exemption codes, the land deed, and the federal protections over military burial sites. The room went silent. One man in the back actually whispered, "Oh, wow." Karen turned red, pivoting wildly. "Let's vote," she said. "All in favor of requiring approval for any ceremony, burial, or flag display." Only 2 hands went up. Hers and a man who looked like he regretted it instantly. Someone in the crowd called out. We didn't know we could ignore her before. Laughter followed. For the first time, Karen looked shaken.